credit to the Giants, who were so good in April and then since then just kind of fell apart. Now they're back in it again. I don't. I think the Mets will get in. But it is fascinating that they'll play the Marlins here the last 3 games of the season. And,
wow.
I know without a doubt that the Marlins are going to line up Sandy Alcantara, Yuri Perez, and top guys to try and beat the Mets.
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
It is the biggest story in sports. It is the ability to predict outcomes in sports without calling it sports betting. But I guess Massachusetts doesn't like it very much, and they're saying basically you can't operate in our market without having a license like FanDuel and DraftKings. And they're coming at this company, Robinhood, who you may be familiar with. Robinhood right now says, hey, we should be able to operate just like these other companies.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
They had clearly in hand at the end, especially in the second half, and yet somehow they managed a shank of a 60-yard field goal, and a flag comes in with no time left on it for a penalty. Do you want to know how many times that penalty of leverage was called all last season? Want to take a guess?
How many?
4.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
The biggest games, the biggest bets that you need to know. So much fun already, Joe. I feel like we got a lot of information now.
Yeah. Good games, not great, but again, it's college football. You can bet on them, nothing better.
Bet it, win it. By the way, and I always like to say this, and it's true. Like, you can have the worst game in the world. You cash your ticket, it's like a Picasso. Like, that game was the best game I ever watched in my life.
Are you kidding?
Exactly.
Especially when you're hitting parlays.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Good afternoon. Welcome to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. I'm Craig Mish. It's Thursday. College and pro football back this weekend. We'll preview all the games coming up this weekend in addition to the Thursday night National Football League game between Houston and Buffalo. Also, Paul Stone will join us here on the show. The latest in the landscape in college football. Some under-the-radar games this week. Also, Daniel Wallach will join us for the very latest on the prediction markets, which could be headed for a very uncertain future. We'll also cover the latest in Major League Baseball, as there's a brand new television contract that's going to run over the next couple of years. So stick around with us, 90-minute show. We'll cover it all for you, including the NBA as well as some college hoops. All right, let's get started with Major League Baseball, a new television deal, which I'm going to tell you about here in just a minute. And the reason why the commissioner of Major League Baseball spoke yesterday is because essentially they have a new deal. And as part of that, they were able to ask questions with reporters about other topics. And the top topic of the day outside of streaming and broadcast news was sports betting. And so Major League Baseball at this point is having to answer questions on what they're calling as a new integrity crisis. Friday, members of a Senate committee sent a letter to the commissioner, Rob Manfred, communicating a concern with baseball and other pro sports, confronting and seeking answers about the pitcher's alleged scheme involving those two pitchers on Cleveland, Ortiz and Class A. Rob Manfred, the commissioner, said the league would fully respond and cooperate on time to the Senate inquiry, saying, quote, "The ability to discern inappropriate patterns is really important. We understand the prop betting market from the very beginning. I'm glad we've done something about it." He's alluding to having max wagers on some of these bets of $200. But then he goes on to say the rest of the program right now, we're generally prepared to move forward under the rules that we have now. So we'll see if Major League Baseball has any further reaction. We also know the National Football League is under some question as well with their prop bets, trying to limit them or eliminate them entirely. Also, Major League Baseball made an announcement yesterday that their broadcast deal, which is worth hundreds of millions of dollars, is headed toward NBC, Sunday Night Baseball, and the first round of the playoffs. NBC is now the primary national carrier of Major League Baseball. But in addition, Netflix will have opening day, the Field of Dreams game in Iowa, and also Home Run Derby. And ESPN is also going to have some out-of-market games, but they're not the primary carrier. They will take over MLB TV. So essentially, you can purchase MLB TV through MLB TV or through ESPN. But the bottom line is that NBC is getting back baseball for the first time since 2000. The games will also stream on Peacock. All-Star Week coverage will be on NBC. And naturally, it's about $800 million, which means it's a really good deal for Major League Baseball. And then we'll see what happens in a few years as they try to consolidate all of these deals. Now, as far as the National Football League is concerned tonight, the Buffalo Bills, coming off a stellar performance last week, will take on the Houston Texans tonight. C.J. Stroud out at quarterback for the Texans. It will be Davis Mills, but it is a home game. And you know what that usually means on primetime games on Thursday Night Football. Bills minus 5.5 total, 43.5 over at the FanDuel Sportsbook. Huge game for Houston, by the way, to stay in the playoff mix. Here is Josh Allen on going on the road on a short week, trying to capture a victory.
I'm not calling like a team that doesn't blitz a whole lot. They're not a lot of exotic looks. They just kind of put the ball down and play. They're fantastic in the back end. I think their front is great. They're getting a lot of pressure on the quarterbacks. So yeah, we're gonna have our hands full. But again, on a short week, just trying to put together a game plan, watching as much film as we can. Trying to develop as good of a plan we can, and ultimately comes down to executing on Thursday.
Yeah, I mean, they have a great defense. They disguise a lot in coverage, a lot of different blitz packages where they're showing one thing and end up getting to another thing post-snap. And, I mean, it's credit to them. They do it at a high level. A lot of those guys have played together for a long time, so they're able to kind of feed off each other and make each other look good and make each other's disguises actually believable. So a lot of our game plan is just really not letting the pre-snap stuff kind of bog you down too much and really just reacting and playing fast post-snap.
Meanwhile, the Cincinnati Bengals, a sight for sore eyes at practice yesterday. Quarterback Joe Burrow back on the practice field, full participant for the first time since September. Probably won't play this week against the Patriots, but Thanksgiving, looks like you're going to see Joe Burrow back with the Bengals. Meanwhile, first career start is on deck for Shedeur Sanders, who came in relief of Dylan Gabriel last week for the Cleveland Browns. They'll face off against the Raiders this week, and Sanders said to take some good with some bad from last week and try to get better.
Yeah, mentally and emotionally, I'm in a great place overall. In life, it's always going to be adversity. Things aren't always going to go, as planned, but I would say, I'm prepared for everything. The same how I always am, knowing exactly where everybody's going to be, prepared, understand that they have a great defense, they're coached by a great coach, and they have great players on that side of the ball. So just doing what I can, to prepare mentally, physically, emotionally, to make sure I'm my best self.
Meanwhile, the Green Bay Packers could be without Josh Jacobs this week. He didn't practice yesterday, their great running back, but he is questionable, could potentially play in this week's game. Vikings will take on the Packers in a divisional battle. Matt LaFleur talked about Emmanuel Wilson potentially getting the ball, and of course, Wilson did score a touchdown this past week.
Yeah, I just think that, first of all, I think Ben does a great job with those guys, but it speaks to his development. I can tell you, his rookie year, it was nonstop. I was always in his ear, kind of getting on him pretty good, but it's a credit to him in regards to being able to take the coaching and just show up, I would say, with a sense of urgency every day. There was a lot to learn coming from where he came from to where he is now, but I think he's embraced that. He's embraced the challenge, and then he's maximized his opportunities.
New York Jets will start Tyrod Taylor this week against the Ravens. And over in college basketball, we saw a pretty big win for Arizona last night. They defeat UConn 71-67 and have some really big wins on their schedule already this season. Jaden Bradley had 21 points. UConn sort of gave this one away late in the game, and Dan Hurley wasn't happy about that.
A brutal loss just because we fought so hard. To get a lead down the stretch. And then, obviously they have that bad miss, up one, bad miss at the rim. Just got to secure that defensive rebound, come down, execute, maybe get a 3-point lead, 4-point lead. They pick it up off the ground, turn and score, take a 1-point lead. So, really tough, tough loss because we could have stole it. I mean, literally stole it. We were out rebounded, obviously by 20, and versus a high level opponent, you're not going to have many nights where you could steal one versus a top 5 team when you get out rebounded by 20.
Meanwhile, Alabama Crimson Tide keep things rolling, get a big win over Illinois at the United Center. Labarian Philon from Alabama had 24 points and 5 assists. Will be a fun showdown Monday as Bama takes on the Zags in Las Vegas. Here's Brad Underwood on the victory.
Again, it was their night. They played better than we did. A lot to learn from for us in that moment. You can't have a lane violation. When they missed the front end of a 1-on-1, we had a couple back-to-back turnover sequences that hurt you. But I love our team. I love where we're going to be. I thought our 2 freshmen didn't play great tonight, but they had something to do with that. So my hat's off to Alabama, and they're obviously going to have a great season. And I hope to see them in the Final Four.
Jalen Brunson returns for the Knicks. He had 28 points, and New York beats Dallas by a final of 113-111. Guess who had a triple-double on the Denver Nuggets? I'll give you a hint. It's the picture of the guy you see right there, Nikola Jokic. 28 points, 12 assists, and 11 rebounds. Denver beats New Orleans 125-118. Red-hot Houston Rockets win their 5th straight, 114-104 over the Cleveland Cavs. And no surprise here, as Oklahoma City has been the very best team in the NBA. They're now 15-1 with a 113-99 win over the Sacramento Kings as Shai Gilgeous-Alexander led the way with 33 points. Coming up next, what is up next for prediction markets? Daniel Wallach is going to join us from the podcast Conduct Detrimental to discuss what we could see in the future. Stick with us here on NewsWire. We'll be right back.
And Mahomes were never taken serious. Hurts won't be even if they're the 1 seed. Jonathan Taylor plays running back. Stop. Mahomes lost the head-to-head to Josh. Can I confidently eliminate every single person booked behind Josh Allen to at least beat out Josh Allen? So I'm in a head-to-head with Stafford May?
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Where are the wins coming from? And yes, I agree. Are they good enough to win those games? Yeah, of course they are, right? But the reality of this team is not very good this year in 1-score games. They're not. That was their bread and butter a year ago. Like every win last year, 1-score game, the Chiefs found a way to win it.
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
You need Justin Jefferson on that wall in the playoffs. Like, you got to go get him. He is still the man. I understand the JJ week last. I get it. It was ugly. There were a lot of spots where, where's he throwing that ball to? What's he doing? It'll be fine. Justin Jefferson's far too talented, and McCarthy will continue to figure it out. But it's the target volume you want. He gets double-digit targets every week. He is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Always great to catch up with old friends, and Daniel Wallach is one of those for me. In fact, one of my neighbors here in South Florida of the podcast Conduct Detrimental, certainly covering the sports landscape, sports betting landscape, and legal landscape as well as it pertains to sports. And Dan, great to have you back here on NewsWire. I know it's been a minute or two since you and I have caught up. Appreciate you coming back on the show.
My pleasure. I think my 3-year suspension is over. I'm glad to be back and be grateful for the program.
Has it been that long? It cannot.
Yeah, I don't recall what I did, but it took a while to get back, to claw my way back. So I decided to wear a suit for the occasion, first time ever.
That's nice. That's nice. Yeah, I think the last time we left you, there was like some not allowed to go on the internet in some country you were living, but that's a story for another day. But anyway, let's get started here, because yesterday or this week, a very interesting event from the CFTC. One of their nominations, their nominee Michael Seelig, was finally put to the test. And with these prediction markets, no one seems to be answering questions as to what the future could potentially hold. Is prediction market sports betting? Is it not? And Seelig, who of course is expecting a nice bump here in salary and pay and a new job, didn't really seem to be all that interested in challenging these prediction markets, saying that he is going to leave it up to the courts, saying several times he's going to leave this to the courts as it pertains to prediction markets. So it's been a while since we've talked. What do you make of this whole prediction market business? It seems like a lot of companies are jumping in. DraftKings, FanDuel even leaving the American Gaming Association. There's just no stopping this train, and it doesn't seem like anybody's willing to even challenge it at this point.
Well, because it has the full-throated support of the Trump administration. Donald Trump Jr. is a strategic advisor to Polymarket, to Kalshi. Truth Social is now in a partnership with Crypto.com. Wall Street is behind this. The White House is behind this. Major financial institutions like Citadel, Susquehanna, Silicon Valley. If we're going to analogize to David versus Goliath, the Goliath are the prediction markets, because they have the full support of the federal government now, as exemplified by nominee Seelig's non-answer and dodging of an obvious question. If you place a bet on the outcome of an NFL game, is that gaming? He couldn't even concede that. And the reason he did not make that concession is that there's a regulation in the CFTC rulemaking in which gambling contracts, gaming contracts are per se prohibited as contrary to the public interest. When Congress created this whole mess back in 2010, no one ever thought that sports betting was a vehicle which could be conducted on the derivatives markets. It stayed silent for 15 years, and only through very creative lawyering by Kalshi's legal counsel did the notion of like swaps, now encompassing outcomes in sporting events, come into the public sphere. It is just this mysterious argument that has gained traction over the last couple of months, but the courts have increasingly rejected that premise. So the future of the prediction markets, I think, at least for now, may be in the hands of the federal courts. But the good news for those who support prediction markets is that these court battles may last for another 2 to 3 years before we get clarity around the law. And nominee Seelig was handpicked by Donald Trump, not because he was neutral on prediction markets, but because he would do nothing to slow it down and to not even be able to define what gaming is. Every first-year gaming attorney knows what gaming means. Sports betting, casino, that is quintessential gaming, and he wouldn't even give an inch on that, because to do so would have compromised the legality of the prediction markets, because CFTC is not pushing back, has not taken any action to limit or restrict the kinds of event contracts that these companies are now listing, all of which are tied to outcomes of sporting events, quintessential sports betting.
So let's play it forward here a little bit. And even though it may come down the line, we understand these companies could operate in the space for a while. So how will the pending court cases impact all of it? And certainly, will it potentially make an effect on whether or not they're able to operate? And could this eventually get to the Supreme Court, just like sports betting did several years ago?
I think we're on a path to the U.S. Supreme Court, because there are conflicting lower federal court rulings. 6 different states are in litigation with Kalshi currently. 2 decisions initially went Kalshi's way. 3 decisions recently went the state's way. I think the more recent trend in how the courts are looking at this issue is to try to determine whether Congress could have intended, when it amended the Dodd-Frank Act to resolve the financial crisis in 2010, whether the part of Congress's design was to allow for sports gambling to be conducted on derivatives markets. Anyone who's followed the legislative history and knows about the Wire Act and PASPA which both set forth a federal policy of against sports betting. I think we know what the answer is, but the courts seem somewhat divided on it. And at this point, it means that the path for prediction markets will last for at least for a couple more years. But ultimately, this issue will be decided by either the courts or Congress. So if the courts shut it down, they can be resurrected if Congress changes the law.
So with them operating as they have, and certainly, knowing now that FanDuel and DraftKings, the two biggest sports betting operators, are jumping into the fray at this point, does this just appear to be too big to fail, Dan? Does it feel like prediction markets are just here to stay permanently?
No. It may seem that the genie is out of the bottle and that there's this irreversible momentum. But, when you think about Wall Street, Silicon Valley, the White House, those are some powerful allies in the corner of the prediction markets, but nothing stays the same forever. This administration only has 4 more years, but most importantly, judicial rulings, court decisions could shut this down, and nothing is too big to fail if courts determine that it is not authorized under federal law and or violates state law or federal law. And that determination has yet to be conclusively made by the courts. If and when the courts reach that determination, then it gets shut down. Nothing is too big to fail if the courts say it's illegal. The backdoor option, the plan B for the Trump administration and for the pillars of Wall Street and Silicon Valley, is to go the congressional route. And the recent NBA and Major League Baseball, betting scandals and allegations may create some momentum for Congress to intervene here and provide a safe harbor for the markets.
Dan, it's always great to catch up with you, and happy Thanksgiving. I'm sure we'll talk again soon. Thanks for coming on.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Craig.
And Mahomes were never taken serious. Hurts won't be even if they're the 1 seed. Jonathan Taylor plays running back. Stop. Mahomes lost the head-to-head to Josh. Can I confidently eliminate every single person booked behind Josh Allen to at least beat out Josh Allen? So I'm in a head-to-head with Stafford May?
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Where are the wins coming from? And yes, I agree. Are they good enough to win those games? Yeah, of course they are, right? But the reality of this team is not very good this year in 1-score games. They're not. That was their bread and butter a year ago. Like every win last year, 1-score game, the Chiefs found a way to win it.
The Craig Carden Show. Only on SportsGrid.
You need Justin Jefferson on that wall in the playoffs. Like, you got to go get him. He is still the man. I understand the JJ week last. I get it. It was ugly. There were a lot of spots where, where's he throwing that ball to? What's he doing? It'll be fine. Justin Jefferson's far too talented, and McCarthy will continue to figure it out. But it's the target volume you want. He gets double-digit targets every week. He is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. This time of the year, college football coaches are stumping for their own appearance into the college football playoff. I'm not sure that one coach got that memo. Also, Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, weighs in on his son getting his first start, and a new head coach speaks about his new gig with Virginia Tech. You know who that is, probably. If not, I'm going to help you out. Time now for the SportsGrid Sound Off. All right, brand new head coach for the Hokies. It's the first of many other, as we would say, shoes to drop. Who's going to be the next coach at Florida, LSU, other schools as well. Auburn searching for a new coach too. Virginia Tech lands James Franklin, who had a stellar career as the head coach at Penn State University. He met with the media at his first press conference since taking the job and talked about how all his years of coaching experience should be able to translate with the Hokies.
Been in this profession for over 30 years and have learned a ton of lessons. Started in Division II, worked my way all the way up, got my first big break in the ACC, been a head coach in the SEC, been a head coach in the Big Ten, and now obviously fortunate to have this unbelievable opportunity in the ACC at Virginia Tech. But all these experiences, all these lessons that I've learned, we're going to pour them into Virginia Tech. And I feel like it's going to put us in a really specific position to separate ourselves over a ton of different schools. There's very few head coaches that have had the experience in the SEC, in the Big Ten, and the ACC. And we're going to use all those experiences and resources for the betterment of Virginia Tech.
As get ready for a new era with the Hokies. Could it be an era of college football playoffs for Tulane? Tulane takes on Temple this week, and Tulane is on the brink of potentially qualifying for the college football playoffs. But, there's voters and there's people that are involved in this process, and so naturally we'll have to see if the Green Wave end up getting in. John Sumrall, the head coach of Tulane, was asked if he deserves and his school deserves to be in the college football playoffs, and his answer was quite surprising.
Do you feel like your team is one of the top 25 teams in the country currently?
I don't know. I hadn't watched that many other people play. I watch us play, and I watch whoever getting ready to play. And then after that, I don't really know who else is out there. I'll just be very candid. There's some days I feel like we're one of the bottom 25 teams in the country watching us play. So, if we want to start feeling comfortable or casual about somebody wanting to vote us in the top 25 teams, there must be a lot of bad football going on if we're one of the top 25 teams. So, there must be some really bad football played right now in college football. So, I don't know. We're average. We're an average team. We get every 6 or 7 days, depending on the schedule of the week, to promote ourselves or embarrass ourselves. We've done that before. So we better get ready to play. I watched this practice today. I think we're average.
All right. Do average teams make the college football playoff? Oof. Not the answer that I was looking for there. All right. Finally, Coach Prime of Colorado's football team going to get to watch his son play on Sunday. That is right. Shedeur Sanders will get his first career start in Las Vegas against the Raiders. How will he fare? Well, here is a sort of prediction from his dad, Coach Prime.
I'm his dad. I'm his dad. So, of course, because I know football, and I know him, and I know what I see, and I know some stuff behind the curtain. So I offer him not just on the field advice, off the field advice, life advice, because he's going through a lot right now. A lot of stuff is coming at him, and he's doing a great job. Thank God that God prepared him for everything he's dealing with. I think a lesser man would have crumbled, but he's been built for this. And who else is built for the adversity like he is, like going into the NFL? I don't think it's too many quarterbacks that are built like that for the adverse situations, and not having the best of things to happen around him. I think we've always done that. We've never had the best of anything, set aside lifestyle, I tried my best to do what a father should do. But when it came to playing on the field, we never had the best of this, the best of that, but we've made the most of this and the most of that.
I think Deion's getting ready to see whether or not his son can perform. I don't know. I think at this point you got to root for some success with Shedeur Sanders. He just didn't have much this past week. All right, coming up next, Paul Stone is getting ready to weigh in on some college football games with us. Speaking of which, the ACC has been upside down all season long. Can we get some clarity? Can Georgia Tech finally put their stamp on the season? We'll find out next. You're watching NewsWire here on SportsGrid.
You need Justin Jefferson on that wall in the playoffs. Like, you got to go get him. He is still the man. I understand the JJ week last. Like, I get it. It was ugly. There were a lot of spots where, where's he throwing that ball to? What's he doing? It'll be fine. Justin Jefferson's far too talented, and McCarthy will continue to figure it out. But it's the target volume you want. He gets double-digit targets every week. He is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Oh boy, oh boy. This is not going to go away, folks. This betting scandal that involved Terry Rozier, that involved Jonte Porter last year, and then obviously with Chauncey Billups getting involved and stuff like that, this is not going away. This is not good. And this is not the end of this scandal.
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Players behind the scenes will complain about Hurts' unwillingness to throw through tight windows against zone coverage. I told you Friday, Kevin, that Jalen Hurts takes the path of least resistance. He holds on to the ball. He doesn't like making those tighter throws. Though he loves making deeper throws, which it's interesting. Over 20 yards, he's one of the best in the National Football League.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circus Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The great Paul Stone is checking in with us. And boy, we got some under-the-radar games coming up this week before the heavy games begin as we head toward Thanksgiving week and the college football playoffs. And certainly, I hope you had a great time, Paul, this past week watching Georgia take on Texas, although it didn't go Texas's way, so to speak. Georgia sort of dominated that game start to finish as we come into picture. But great to have you back here on NewsWire to break down what I think could be the signature game of the season if Georgia Tech can pull this off, Paul. They're 2.5-point favorites. They're supposed to win. The total is 61.5. But if they don't, Paul, and if Georgia Tech does not win, we are no closer to figuring out this ACC than we were at the beginning of the season. It's just been a flat-out mess.
Yeah, it is kind of a jumbled mess for sure, Craig. And this would give some clarity if Georgia Tech indeed wins, and they're a 2.5-point favorite there in Atlanta this Saturday over Pittsburgh. You know, both these teams coming off subpar performances this past weekend. Georgia Tech trails by 11 at Boston College entering the fourth quarter. They rally for a 36-34 victory over the Eagles there in Chestnut Hill. And then Pitt, they fell behind early to Notre Dame, never really challenged the Irish, lose to Notre Dame 37-15 at home. Both these teams, though, still in the thick of the ACC race. Georgia Tech and Virginia leading the ACC at 6-1. Pitt and SMU just a half game back at 5-1. So a lot of teams still in contention there. I look at this game, Craig, and Georgia Tech favored by 2.5 on its home field. What that number infers, in my opinion, is that Pitt would be a 1.5-point favorite on a neutral field. And I don't see that. I think Georgia Tech is the better team. I think it's close, but I just really like their quarterback, 6-year senior Haynes King, their head coach Brent Key. I mean, you got kind of a daily double there. King, a throwback, tough guy, leads the Yellow Jackets in both passing, 2,259 yards, rushing 807 yards. So he's a dual threat guy. Team really feeds off of him. And then Brent Key, you know, he was first named interim coach there in the middle of 2022, eventually named permanent coach. And in games he's been a head coach, he's 26-18 against the spread, a pretty nifty 59% winning percentage against the spread. So his teams have outperformed market expectations, if you will. I'm going to go with the team here in Georgia Tech that has a 6-year senior quarterback playing at home against a Pitt team that's playing a true freshman quarterback, albeit a good one, playing on the road. I like Georgia Tech -2.5 over Pitt Saturday.
And Pitt has done very well against Georgia Tech in the past, winning 4 of their last 5 games. But naturally, the stakes are as high as they've ever been for the Yellow Jackets going into this game. Speaking of high stakes, Paul, James Madison University has flown under the radar for the majority of the season, but flying under no more. They're part of this conversation for the college football playoffs. And JMU takes on Washington State this Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern with a total of 42.5. But you look at James Madison this season, and they have lived up to the billing, Paul. They've played 1 game, I believe, within a touchdown. Only 1 game. If they only won by 7, they've been dominant. Their defense has been really good, too. I mean, a historical game for them this week. If they're able to pull this off, it's going to be hard for people to keep them out of that college football playoff.
Yeah, you would think so. I was looking at odds at a sports book in preparation for this appearance, and James Madison currently +400, so 4-1 to make the playoff at one book. At that same book, North Texas at +100 or even money, Tulane at +190. So even though Tulane's the team that's ranked in the College Football Playoff Committee's rankings, North Texas has shorter odds, so a higher probability. I assume they expect North Texas to win the conference championship game there. But you look at this James Madison team, you noted and mentioned their dominance. They've played one Power 4 team this year. That's their only loss. Played Louisville back in week 2. A very competitive game. They ended up losing 28-14 to the Cardinals, but actually led 14-6 in the third quarter. Game was tied at 14 entering the fourth, so they were very competitive in that game. They've got 2 games remaining in their regular season. Of course, Washington State this Saturday. Then they travel to Coastal Carolina next Saturday, and then they'll play the league's West Division winner, likely on James Madison's home field there in Harrisonburg. The Dukes, they can't afford any hiccups. They need to win. I think they know they need style points. And I think Washington State kind of has the committee's eye. I think everybody remembers the Cougars traveling east across the country in mid-October, back-to-back weekends at Ole Miss, at Virginia. They lose both of those games, but lose them by a grand total of 5 points. Could have won either or both of those games. Really competitive. But I think Washington State's going to run out of juice here. I really like this JMU team led by their veteran quarterback, Alonzo Barnett III. 13.5 is the predominant line you're seeing right now. The Dukes need style points. I like JMU -13.5 over Washington State.
Again, Alonzo Barrett, 28 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. He's caught the eye of a lot of folks, too, with his great play this season. All right, another under-the-radar type game. We go Saturday, 3:30 Eastern, UTSA at home, getting 2.5 points against East Carolina. And for those who haven't been paying attention, and I probably would guess some aren't, Paul, East Carolina's resume, really impressive this season. A couple of losses, 1 to Tulane, 1 to BYU. That's not bad. I mean, both those teams have been ranked, and they've won some big games in their conference this season. But their biggest game is coming up this week, Saturday at 3:30 Eastern, a team UTSA I don't know a ton about, so you'll have to enlighten us.
Well, East Carolina, you mentioned that they've had a pretty solid year, maybe under the radar to this point. And last weekend, they're at home in Greenville, North Carolina. They're probably their signature win of the season to date. They beat Memphis 31-27. A back-and-forth game kind of went down to the wire. East Carolina scores the winning touchdown on a pass with 68 seconds to go, so won it late. Meanwhile, UTSA, they only led at Charlotte by a 7-0 margin at halftime. Kind of coast in the second half, pull away, win that game over the 49ers 28-7. You know, we sometimes talk about in college football teams that have a home road dichotomy, who have real distinct different type performance levels at home versus on the road. I don't know that any team more so the last couple of years has exemplified that than Texas San Antonio. First of all, straight up, they're 9-1 at home at the Alamo Dome over the last 2 years. 9-1 at home, straight up. 2-10 on the road, straight up. Certainly the quality of opposition has accounted for some of that. They played some tough games on the road, played at Texas A&M to open the season this year, for instance. So the schedules have been a little bit disparate, but still there's something to it. Against the spread, 8-2 for those 10 games. Against the spread at home, 3-9 against the spread away from the Alamo Dome. So they're a different team at home. Their quarterback, Owen McCowan, son of former NFL quarterback Josh McCowan. McCown has really been spot on at home this year, especially his last 3 home games. And looking at those home games against Incarnate Word of the FCS, Rice, and then Tulane a couple of Thursdays ago, McCown in his last 3 games at home, 76 of 90. So 84%, 849 yards. He's really been good. And that Thursday night game against Tulane a couple of weeks ago, hard to forget if you watch that game. McCowan, 31 of 33. So he was a marksman, 370 yards, 4 touchdowns, no interceptions. You look at UTSA at the Alamo Dome since late 2023, they're 10-2 against the spread. UTSA head coach Jeff Traylor, since taking over before the 2020 season, Traylor 7-1 against the spread as a home underdog. I think he makes it 8-1 against the spread as a home underdog. I like the Roadrunners plus 2.5 over East Carolina on Saturday in San Antonio.
All right, Paul, great stuff as always. Appreciate you coming on the show. Paul normally appears on the show on Thursday. Of course, Thursday is Thanksgiving. So, Paul, we wish you a happy Thanksgiving, and we'll catch up after the holiday. Thanks again for coming on.
Hey, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
All right, we'll be right back with Tom Vecchio.
You need Justin Jefferson on that wall in the playoffs. Like, you got to go get him. He is still the man. I understand the JJ week last. I get it. It was ugly. There were a lot of spots where, where's he throwing that ball to? What's he doing? It'll be fine. Justin Jefferson's far too talented, and McCarthy will continue to figure it out. But it's the target volume you want. He gets double-digit targets every week. He is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Fantasy Sports Today, only on SportsGrid.
Oh boy, oh boy. This is not going to go away, folks. This betting scandal that involved Terry Rozier, that involved Jonte Porter last year, and then obviously with Chauncey Billups getting involved and stuff like that, this is not going away. This is not good. And this is not the end of this scandal.
Pro Basketball Today, only on SportsGrid.
Players behind the scenes have complained about Hurts's unwillingness to throw through tight windows against zone coverage. I told you Friday, Kevin, that Jalen Hurts takes the path of least resistance. He holds on to the ball. He doesn't like making those tighter throws. Though he loves making deeper throws, which it's interesting. Over 20 yards, he's one of the best in the National Football League.
Pro Football Today, only on SportsGrid.
Football contest season is back, and so is the Las Vegas Football Contest Show. Season 2, the sharpest football contest show in the land. Focusing on all 3 Circa Sports contests and the Westgate Superbook Super Contest, we handicap the games and release our contest picks every week of the season. Featuring Super Contest champions Brady Cannon, James Salinas, and former NFL player Mike Pritchard, all team will have you prepared this season like none other. Check us out every weekend right here on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire. Thursday Night Football is upon us. The primetime games have been a little bit on the duller side over the last couple of weeks. Maybe things changed tonight, although the total certainly would not indicate that. Tom Vecchio is back with us to break this one down. Hopefully we get a good game on Thursday Night Football with all of the great Thursday football we have coming up next week. Tom, thanks for coming on. The Bills are at the Texans. Buffalo's 5.5-point favorites. They exploded on offense this past week. Houston is staying alive at the moment. They're getting 5.5 points. It was announced yesterday Davis Mills will start again for Houston. He's done a good job running the show while C.J. Stroud is out. The total is very low, as all Houston Texans games are. at 43.5. So is it home dog cooking tonight, or does Buffalo do what they did this past week against Houston?
In this game, and part of my mindset coming in is Buffalo is probably viewing this as let's get in, let's get out, and let's get away with a win. It doesn't matter how ugly it is. And the Texans are viewing this as we want to make it ugly in order to keep us close and potentially come away with a win. Because if this game turns into a shootout, I don't see a world where the Texans win. They could win this game 20-17. They can't win a game, 35-30. They won't win that game against Buffalo. So they have to keep it ugly if they want to win. But ultimately, if push comes to shove, I think everyone's going to be siding with Josh Allen and the Bills. So, give me the Texans to cover, but they don't come away with the win tonight.
Let's take a look at some props, Tom, tonight that you could potentially be interested in. And the Texans, by the way, announced that Joe Mixon will not return for them this season. I know that that's a name that a lot of folks have forgotten, but it's been Woody Marks and Nick Chubb, and Mixon will be back next season. So that being said, tonight, right now, James Cook is the highest rushing total on the board at 73.5. Woody Marks has done a really nice job since taking over the majority of the carries for Houston. His total is 63.5. And then you have Josh Allen. You have Chubb there at 20.5. And of course, since Davis Mills is starting, we got a prop on him tonight at 7.5. So you have an opinion on any of these heading into the evening?
I don't mind James Cook, obviously, just because he sees the lion's share of the work, but this is a very tough matchup for him. And, on Thursday nights, we often see, coaches deploy more of a split backfield than we are accustomed to seeing or we're anticipating seeing just because it is a short week. So getting a little action on Nick Chubb, I certainly don't mind. I believe Woody Marks is the right answer for the Texans now and going forward. But just because it is a short weekend, the matchup is so favorable. We saw what Sean Tucker did last week. I don't mind a little Nick Chubb, but ultimately Woody Marks is the answer for them, and he should be seeing 75% of the work tonight.
Okay, so let's take a look at receiving yards, where the top guy on Buffalo is really the only wide receiver on Buffalo at the moment. Khalil Shakir, 74.5. Dalton Schultz sits at 37.5. Jaden Higgins, 27.5. And then I see Dawson Knox here at 25.5. What was the announcement on Kincaid? Did they announce Kincaid is playing this week? I know that some folks were hoping that he would.
I believe he's still questionable, but I would be looking to Dalton Schultz. I like the role that he plays. Nico Collins is awesome. There's no doubt about it. It's always going to be a higher number in a game. I'm not expecting to see a ton of points. I don't necessarily want to be going to Nico Collins, but, Schultz is a super solid option. If they're playing from behind, a little bit of pass rush from the Bills could force Mills to throw it quickly, get it out, and that's where Schultz should be playing, not downfield targets, closer to the line.
And by the way, Houston's number to make the playoffs is plus 310 right now on the FanDuel Sportsbook. So still on the outside looking in. Jacksonville with that big win last week jumped back ahead of Houston, despite Houston beating Jacksonville a couple of weeks ago, and their win total is sitting at 8.5. Okay, some marquee games this weekend. Let's review them, Tom. Maybe the biggest one of all could be a playoff preview. Colts taking on the Kansas City Chiefs. If it is a playoff preview, then we got to flip the home teams here because Indy would have that home field advantage. Chiefs are favored, minus 3.5, total 49.5. It feels like the odds makers, Tom, keep telling us eventually the Chiefs are going to go on a run here and get their 10-11 wins. There's nothing really that has indicated that, though, that we've seen thus far this season. And the Colts, of course, coming off a very big week of rest as well, total of 49.5.
I'm expecting this to be a big Jonathan Taylor game, and I know a lot of people view the Chiefs as a great run defense, but, over the last 4 weeks, their run defense has actually taken a step back. They're 23rd in EPA per rush allowed. They're also 26th in stuffed run percentage. And giving a favorable matchup to Jonathan Taylor, who's putting together one of the best running back seasons we've seen over the last 5 years between Barkley last year and really him this year, it could be a huge game for him. So I don't love where his prop is sitting, but he's in a very favorable spot. So I wouldn't lay the 3.5 with the Chiefs. If it was 2.5, maybe that's a different story. But the fact that you're getting the hook, I like Indy on the road.
Vikings and Packers playing to a total of 41.5. I can't remember the last time these two teams played, and no one expected 4 or 5 touchdowns in a game. But Green Bay's offense has been dreadful, and the only team worse in that division has been Minnesota. They just can't get out of their own way offensively. And man, that picture there of Justin Jefferson, wouldn't they like to get him going? Green Bay minus 6.5 at home. Feels like a big number to me. I don't like Minnesota at all, Tom, and I don't think they're headed in the right direction. But can the Packers beat anybody by a touchdown? Last week they didn't cover either.
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't like where the Vikings are. I don't like the way that J.J. McCarthy has been playing as of late. He has looked terrible, especially the last 4 weeks. Obviously, we're dealing with a smaller sample size just because he hasn't played the whole season. But when it comes to EPA per play, success rate, CPOE, any of these numbers, McCarthy is one of the worst quarterbacks in the league, sitting at 31st or 32nd. But to your point, the Packers, even with all these offensive options that they have, which are a little bit banged up at the time, it's not like they're running away with games. And the only way the Vikings would keep this close would make it ugly. So, and I don't want to say like hi J.J. McCarthy, but I part of me feels like that's what they need to do. They don't want him dropping back 35 or 40 times against this pass rush, which has been excellent. So I see an under, and I see the Vikings covering.
Eagles have yet to really explode offensively, and that's probably going to have to happen this week to beat the Dallas Cowboys. Cowboys may not stop the Eagles, but the total is 47.5. And Dallas is getting 3.5 points at home. Tom, it feels like we're at that point of the season with the Cowboys like we are every year, where it's like we feel like we can trust them, but as soon as we do, they lose by like 30. So I don't know here. Is that the case this week? Philadelphia's defense is playing at a very high level, and Dallas is beating up on the bad teams. Can they finally beat a good one this week?
So Dallas got a bit of an injection of talent into their lineup with the players coming back, plus the trade deadline against the Raiders. Granted, that wasn't a really tough test for them, but depending on how this game goes, I think this will say the most about the Eagles' offense. If they can't get it going now, when will they get it going?
All right, let's do this, Tom. We'll catch up again next week. Thanks for coming on the show. Really appreciate it, and best of luck this weekend with all your picks.
Same to you.
Goff and Mahomes were never taken serious. Hurts won't be even if they're the 1 seed. Jonathan Taylor plays running back. Stop. Mahomes lost the head-to-head to Josh. Can I confidently eliminate every single person booked behind Josh Allen to at least beat out Josh Allen? So I'm in a head-to-head with Stafford May?
Game time decisions. Only on SportsGrid.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
NewsWire. Only on SportsGrid.
Where are the wins coming from? And yes, I agree. Are they good enough to win those games? Yeah, of course they are, right? But the reality of this team is not very good this year in one-score games. They're not. That was their bread and butter a year ago. Like every win last year, one-score game, the Chiefs found a way to win it.
The Craig Carton Show. Only on SportsGrid.
You need Justin Jefferson on that wall in the playoffs. Like, you got to go get him. He is still the man. I understand the JJ week last. Like, I get it. It was ugly. There were a lot of spots where, where's he throwing that ball to? What's he doing? It'll be fine. Justin Jefferson's far too talented, and McCarthy will continue to figure it out. But it's the target volume you want. He gets double-digit targets every week. He is arguably the best wide receiver in the NFL.
Fantasy Sports Today. Only on SportsGrid.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. As the National Hockey League season heats up, certainly there are some really interesting odds for the Stanley Cup playoffs and qualifiers. And today what we're going to do is dive into some of the prediction markets. Naturally, the way that we do that is we check in with our friends from the early line, as Donnie Rightside and Joe Ranieri are hosting that show every morning here on SportsGrid. In case you're not catching it, I would highly recommend it. And the way that we're going to take a look at this one is, something we're sort of all getting used to in this space. Maybe for some people, it's not the sports betting market, but it is the prediction market. So courtesy of Kalshi's Odds, we'll take a look at the Stanley Cup champion Florida Panthers, who've had a tough start to their season, and certainly all of the other teams in the National Hockey League that are looking to try and capture the cup this year. So let's check in with our friends at the early line. What do the latest prediction markets state over on Kalshi as far as some of those odds and chances to win the cup and the qualifiers? Here is Donnie and Joe on that.
Those Kalshi markets we know and love, Joe. Each and every day we set aside a segment to get the people up to date on what is Kalshi and also what sort of wagers you can make. Stock market-like predictions, Joe, which is what we love. And in the NHL, let's take a look at this one. Stanley Cup playoff qualifiers. A couple teams listed in there. The Detroit Red Wings, the New York Rangers, the Toronto Maple Leafs, a 51, 47, and 45% chance each. If you think you're going to go into this and say, you know what, Detroit Red Wings make the playoffs, you drop down $100 there. That pays back $197, Joe. Keeping an eye on the volatility of the stock market. Same thing with Kalshi and some of these hockey clubs.
Well, I mean, I don't think it's a mirage that Detroit's sitting, 12-7 on the year. They already have 25 points. They're at the top of the board here in the Eastern Conference. So why would we think that changes, Donnie? I mean, granted, they're not Colorado, who I think has lost, one game since the start of the season. But, I mean, sitting at 12-7, you got to, at that price, the more games they win, the better that investment is going to look. So, yeah, I don't hate that look at all.
How about these looks, Joe? For the number one overall pick in the NBA draft, Darren Peterson, Cameron Boozer, AJ Dybansta, all in the lead here. 61%, by the way, for Peterson. So if you put a $100 wager on him, it's $167. Please tell me who this guy is and who he plays for, Joe. I think you told me before, but I'm old. I don't remember.
Well, Donnie, he was the kid that should have played for Kansas, and we hoped had played for Kansas in that game against Duke in the Champions Classic a couple of days ago. But he's got a hamstring injury, and it doesn't look like it's getting better. So, unfortunately for Kansas fans, they're going to have to wait a little while here, and hopefully he gets on the court because make no mistake, Donnie, I mean, the kid he's going to be the number one pick. If he can play, if he can't, well, maybe Boozer might be the look because he's going to get plenty of love here in the marketplace sooner rather than later.
Yeah, when I hit more markets there, it sends up to, I'm going to play a game with you, Joe, called Who He Play For, because I have no idea who these two kids play for. Nate Ament and Chris Senak Jr. Who he play for?
Oh, Ahmed, I believe, is Tennessee. Also another kid that can flat out play in this spot here. But you're going to have, listen, Donnie, this freshman class this year, including the kid from Arizona we just watched last night and a couple of, obviously, UConn, this might be, and many people are saying, the greatest freshman class that we have seen in a very long time. And they're spread out to obviously where the money is. It used to be those freshmen would only go to Kentucky and Calipari. It's not that way anymore. They are all over the place. And we've got what could be maybe the NBA draft, usually outside of the top 5 picks. Everyone's like, yeah, what's the difference? Who cares? Maybe not this year. This freshman class may be one of the best of all time.
How about that? See who goes number one overall to see how they mix and match those markets here. Let's talk a little soccer action with FIFA. How about this one, Joe? Only $2,000 of volume, though, right now. Will FIFA pull the World Cup out of the USA? Isn't it almost impossible for that to happen? But if you say, I think it does, $100 pays back $2,000 right there. Does the U.S. lose the World Cup? They can't. Look, Ronaldo was in the White House. There's no way. There's no way to lose the World Cup.
And what happened? No, you're not going to lose the World Cup.
There's
too much money
Mexico
involved.
And Canada?
So what is $100 that? What's $100 that no happens? Like what do you make? $3 cents? You get $100.
You get 2% return on your investment. Not bad.
I'm good.
So let me see here. What's the max that you can go here? So let's go 100. Let's go $1 million, Joe. You'll make $10,000 back.
Right.
You got $1 million laying around to make $10,000 off of. Come on now. Now we're talking about it. Let's pool our money together. Let's go. We'll go around.
That's
right.
right.
Exactly. High risk, high reward at this point right now.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The 35 cents, though, for yes on Ohio State.
Yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I think there's value in that right now because we only got, 3 weeks left to go. Then we'll have conference championships. Yeah, the more they keep winning, and they will win, the more that will increase, and that's a pretty good return on an investment there with Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are the wins coming from? And yes, I agree. Are they good enough to win those games? Yeah, of course they are, right? But the reality of this team is not very good this year in one-score games. They're not. That was their bread and butter a year ago. Like every win last year, one-score game, the Chiefs found a way to win it.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
It's almost like betting the stock market. The good part about it is you can take a bet today. In 2 or 3 days, if you nail that bet, you can be able to cash out, Joe. Like you just hit a heavy stock. Like you go into Sun Microsystems or whatever it's called, and you buy into it. In 3 days, you can sell it for a massive profit. Do you understand these markets, Joe?
I do understand the markets. It's amazing how some of the predictive markets seem to have the answers before the test.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Brady Cannon is red hot. We haven't said that a lot. No offense to Brady this year, but they are red hot right now in these contest picks. I know people are watching going, wait a minute here. No, I mean, look, in these contests, it's not how you start. It is always how you finish, because a lot of folks who participate in this contest, as Brady is going to assess to you, once things start going poorly, they kind of don't care and they drop out. But that is not what's going on with Brady and James Pritchard and James Salinas. They have their contest show, Gubby. There's these mini contests, and Brady, I think that is a very big conclusion that I would stress to you, not just for those of you who play fantasy football who don't care anymore and you're just punting your season. In these contest picks, Brady, you spent $500 or $1,000 to play. Why would you submit picks, to try and lose or not care? You guys are doing great. Maybe this will lead to some cash here over the next couple of weeks.
Yeah, our fingers are crossed. We're knocking on wood. Superstitious is bad luck, right? So, but we're doing everything we can to hang in there. And the advent of these mini contests, and it was way back when Jay Cornegay with the Super Contest at Westgate had only the final 3 weeks was the mini contest. And then Derek Stevens came along at Circa and introduced, these quarterly contests. And then the Westgate, followed suit with that. So you've got contests within the contest every 3 or 4 weeks. So you're never really out of it. You got to keep playing. And right now we're in quarter 3 of the Circa Sports Million, off to a good start. And again, like I say, just crossing our fingers and hoping we can keep it rolling here. A couple more good weeks and we might find ourselves with a little cash.
All right, so a rare, my favorite pick of the week wins and wins big. That was the 49ers on the show last week. I just did not think Arizona had a shot. They did not. That was one of the most chosen picks for the Super Contest in week 11, but most of the other picks lost, Brady. The Chiefs, the Vikings, the Chargers on the road. Why was that one of the most picked games of the week? I don't know. And then Dallas always finds their way into this consensus somehow here. So I guess, the Chargers result was a surprising one in terms of the outcome here. But, I mean, Jacksonville, as we've talked about, has kind of hung around all season long. I mean, they're in every game. I didn't see them blowing out the Chargers, though. But you got to really feel, kind of sour on the Chargers here at this point, too. They're sort of fading here down the stretch.
Yeah, that was actually my favorite play of the week was the Jaguars. No, I didn't expect a blowout, but I really liked the Jaguars getting points there as a home dog, and that took a few people out of Survivor contests as well. You're right. The consensus, did not do well once again. They're still at 40% for the season when you combine both the Westgate and the Circa Sports Million. They are at 44, 65, and 1, 40% on the season. They both went 2 and 3 in week 11. If you look at Survivor, like I mentioned, the Chargers taking a few people out there, but really the biggest culprit was the Atlanta Falcons. A big surprise there. And one guy in Circus Survivor went all in. He had like 5 entries left or something and pushed them all to the middle of the table with the Falcons. Ouch. But really no carnage, otherwise. Only 61 entries were eliminated from Circus Survivor. All 8 entries remain alive in the 5K Super Survivor, and all 6 entries remain alive in Circa Grandissimo. This is interesting going into week 12, Craig. And I had no idea that this was the case, but there are still some heavyweights in Circa Survivor. 939 entries left. 118 people have 2 or more entries left. 29 people have 3 or more entries left. 12 people have 4 or more entries left. 1 person has 6 entries left, and 1 person has 10 entries left. I mean, tell me that person isn't the favorite to make some cash. I mean, we're almost at Thanksgiving. That's crazy to have 10 entries still alive. And that's the maximum that you can purchase is 10. So I'm guessing that they're in a group of 4 or 5 or whoever many people.
Has to be.
And they all purchased 10 and they're down to their last 10. But that is still a very strong position with, 8 weeks of football left to go.
Yeah, I would agree with that. So Thanksgiving is next week, and we are off here. We don't have a show next week. So I don't know that you and I will talk before then. And the reason why I bring this up is because the Super Contest works differently, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, with some of these things because of the Thanksgiving games. Can you explain to folks out there? It almost feels as though what they want to do in these contests is start really whittling them down by adding some extra rules into these Thanksgiving games, because they certainly don't want 100 people finishing winning Survivor and things like that. So explain that, how it works.
Right. Yeah, no, you're exactly right. Now, couple different things here. The Super Contest and Circa Sports Million, where you're picking 5 games against the spread, nothing really changes there. But if you're going to play the Thursday games, Thanksgiving, just like normal with, tonight's game, the Bills and the Texans, any Thursday game, you have to turn your entire card in on Thursday before that game kicks off.
Gotcha.
Okay, now you can wait and just play a reduced card on Sunday as well. Now the Survivor contest, the Super Survivor at Westgate, there is no separate week for Thanksgiving or Christmas or anything like that. Again, that was something that Derek Stevens introduced. And again, to kind of make it more challenging, whittle that field down, like you say. So in Circa Survivor, the big dog out here with over 900 entries still alive, that Thursday and Black Friday, of which there are 4 games, you've got to pick a winner out of those 4 games. That's a separate week. And then you have to, if you survive that, you got to turn right back around and pick a winner for the Sunday slate as well. So the Thanksgiving games, Packers at the Lions, Chiefs at the Cowboys, Bengals at the Ravens, Bears at the Eagles. That's the Friday game. Some people don't have all those teams available. And in fact, I saw something today where people are going to be forced to take like either the Cowboys, the Bengals, or the Bears or something like that. So some people are really up against it. And you're right. Now, last year, Craig, when we came out of Thanksgiving and the Sunday of that week as well, there were only like 56 entries left in Survivor.
Right.
So we expect we could be down
sense.
to a couple hundred people, after next weekend.
Let me ask you this. I mean, it's probably rare, but I guess it is possible that somebody took the Bengals and the Bears and survived. Is it possible that somebody will enter that with nothing left? Or you had to navigate that early in the year, right?
Well, if you've got nothing left, you're cooked. You can't make a pick. You've got to have at least.
So you're out completely.
Left. Yeah. I mean, there's 8 teams obviously and then you've got Christmas as well, where the Cowboys are at the Commanders, the Lions are at the Vikings, and the Broncos are at the Chiefs. You've got 3 teams that play on both holidays: the Chiefs, the Cowboys, and the Lions. So that's where the strategy is just so much heightened here, in trying to map out your season. And I think that's the question when you're playing Survivor, Circa Survivor specifically. Do you use these teams early in the year to just try and make it to the next week? Or do you hang on to those teams so you have, quite an arsenal, for when you do reach Thanksgiving and Christmas? It's really tough to balance that, because obviously you have to get to the holidays before you can even, hope to have some teams left. So you're right. To your point, it whittles down the field quite a bit, these holidays and the way they structure them in the Circa contest. And it makes for incredible drama.
I really, part of me really doesn't like this, though, because I feel like if you were good enough to get to this point and you hit all the right buttons and then all you saved was the Bengals, it almost doesn't seem fair that your strategy from week 2 was relying on, Burrow playing or not.
5-letter word for you: hedge. That's when you.
That's exactly right. That's
you
the point.
put 20 grand on the other side of the Bengals game.
You see, that's why we have Brady, to make it make sense of all of this stuff. All right, coming up next, we'll see if Brady will give us some leans on some games for this week as we continue on here on NewsWire. Don't go away.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own, scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The 35 cents, though, for yes on Ohio State.
Yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I think there's value in that right now, because we only got, 3 weeks left to go. Then we'll have conference championships. Yeah, the more they keep winning, and they will win, the more that will increase, and that's a pretty good return on an investment there with Kalshi.
The Early Line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are the wins coming from? And yes, I agree. Are they good enough to win those games? Yeah, of course they are, right? But the reality of this team is not very good this year in one-score games. They're not. That was their bread and butter a year ago. Like every win last year, one-score game, the Chiefs found a way to win it.
The Craig Carton Show, only on SportsGrid.
It's almost like betting the stock market. The good part about it is you can take a bet today. And in 2 or 3 days, if you nail that bet, you can be able to cash out, Joe. Like you just hit a heavy stock. Like you go into Sun Microsystems or whatever it's called, and you buy into it. In 3 days, you can sell it for a massive profit. Do you understand these markets, Joe?
I do understand the markets. It's amazing how some of the predictive markets seem to have the answers before the test.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
All All right, welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. The moment everyone's been waiting for is to get Brady's pick between the Browns and Raiders. We saved the best for last on this show today. Let's start off with Thursday Night Football, Brady. It's the Buffalo Bills against the Houston Texans. I know you and I keep it real here on the show. The Sunday games have been fine. The primetime games have been horrible. I mean, that's just the truth. And Thursday night, Sunday night, Monday night, not all season. The past few weeks, the games, Brady, they've been unwatchable after the second half. So, I mean, genuinely hoping that we get a good one this week. And I know it's cyclical. Things will change. Playoffs will come. Everyone will forget about that. But Thursday night, Houston home, getting 5.5 points, total 43.5. I feel like the Bills probably from here will be one of the best teams in the NFL, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're going to cover the spread on the road against a Houston team that even when they don't put up points, they seemingly hold other teams to 20 points or less. Total is 43.5 tonight. Is this another snoozer on Thursday Night Football, or do we get a decent game here tonight?
I think we'll get a decent game. You know, it's hard to have a snoozer with the Bills, it seems. I mean, they've certainly laid a couple of eggs this season, but you know that offense is really high octane, and that defense is so good on the other side for the Texans. But it's interesting when you have, 70, 80% of the bets, the tickets, what have you on the Bills here, and yet the line's coming down. I'm probably going to find a way to get on the Texans with the points somehow. I'd love to have a 6. Obviously, that's pretty much gone at this point. Right. It's 5.5 everywhere. Who knows? Maybe I'll use them in a teaser or something. I don't know. But I think I don't bet a lot of Thursday games, but I do have confidence that the Texans are going to find a way to stay inside this number. When I crunch all my stats, I come to Houston as a 4-point dog. So, I think 6 is certainly a nice number, and, do what you can with that. You mentioned the Browns and the Raiders. That one is absolutely baffling to me, Craig, how the Raiders started as a 3.5-point favorite and then took money and went to 4. It's like,
I know. I don't get it either.
Did we see that offensive line on Monday night? How the Cowboys just went through it like a knife through butter, and what's Myles Garrett going to do to that offensive line?
Now, let's show that, Luke. Throw that up there, Luke, so we can review that game. We'll flip over to that. Go ahead, Brady. You continue. Sorry.
Are the books adjusting that much for Shadur Sanders, versus
Probably.
Dylan Gabriel?
Yeah.
That's crazy, though. I mean, how much of a difference is there really between Dylan Gabriel and Shadur Sanders? Is it 6 points? I wouldn't think so. So I'm really confused by this game. I would love to take the Cleveland Browns, and I mean, the Raiders shouldn't be favored by 4 points over anybody. But it just feels like such a trap, Craig. It's like, okay, what is the book? What's going on here? Why are the Raiders? What do they know that I don't know? So I don't know. That might be a complete stay away from me.
Yeah. Like I was doing my pick'em today, and I was like, oh, this is an easy one, Raiders. And I'm like, wait a second here. Like I just watched that game last week. I don't know. Like I'm sort of. I mean, the other thing that I would have to say, Brady, about this game, and I hate to say this, but it's true. Pete Carroll, man, this has been an awful coaching season for him too. Like that is not definitely part of this. It feels like he took the job because he just wanted a job, and I'm not saying he's not trying or anything like that, but I mean, is he a one and done with the Raiders? He may be, right?
How about Chip Kelly's play calling?
Oh my gosh, that's right, him too. Yeah, I forgot about that.
Now I think both of these guys are a little bit hamstrung by how bad this offensive line is, and it's also missing its 2 best players due to injury. So the offensive line is just awful. Geno Smith has been a tragic gamble. That didn't work out. I think you might get Aiden O'Connell. I think that's another reason this point spread might be where it is. I think you might get Aiden O'Connell in this game, and that makes some sense why you give the Raiders a bump there in that regard. But I, as a Las Vegas, resident, I was kind of excited about Carroll, not so much for, getting this turned around, but changing the culture. I think that's what he and Tom Brady are after. It's been decades of, just abysmal football operations down the street there at Allegiant Stadium. This Raiders franchise, you throw them in the same bucket with the Jets and the Bengals and the Browns, and just these franchises that year after year after year are horrific. And I'm hoping that Tom Brady and Pete Carroll are the beginning of the turnaround. And I think probably they keep Carroll just because I believe he is that. We've always seen it. He's that rah-rah cheerleader guy. And I think he's there to turn things around more so than he is to just be a great coach. But they need so much talent on that team. They literally probably need 25 first-round draft choices.
Yeah, probably so. That's a good point you bring up about O'Connell. I was wondering why the national reporters mentioned on social media that O'Connell was just simply activated. And I can tell you the reason why is because he's starting. Like, I was wondering why that popped on my screen. I'm like, well, who cares? Like, that's just like saying the backup is active. If they say that, Brady, it's like they know something that we don't know. So I agree. That's probably why the line's 3.5. Okay, so the Lions, help me figure out this team against the New York Giants. I mean, every week Dan Campbell comes out and says, I want to do this different. I want to do that different. And sometimes it works. Sometimes it doesn't. The Lions are in danger of not getting a home game in the playoffs, Brady. They're 10.5-point favorites over the Giants, total 49.5. They're probably going to win 31-10 this week, yeah. But my confidence is waning with them a little bit after what I saw last week.
Yeah, and there is certainly a home road split thing with the Detroit Lions, and we've seen that a few different times this season. I don't think they've lost at home. Well, maybe they did lose at home to the Vikings. Their other losses have all been on the road, I believe. And we know they're a juggernaut at home on that fast track on the turf. They are suffering some injuries too. They were banged up against Philadelphia. They were banged up against the Chiefs. It looks like they're a little bit healthier this week. And I'm with you. I'm probably going to find a way to lay the points here too. And I might work them into a teaser or something like that. But
yeah,
I mean, they're just a machine at home. So I'll probably be on Detroit. And yeah, I still feel like they're one of the top 4 or 5 teams in the NFL. But they're going to have to play some playoff games at home, I think, to continue on and advance in this season.
The Super Bowl odds are upside down this year. There's no 2-1s, 3-1s. I mean, the Eagles are 5-1 as the favorite right now. Did you change any opinion on the Super Bowl this year yet?
I think the Rams are the best team in the NFL right now. That would be my statement at this point.
All right. Plus 550. I would bet somebody not on that list is in the Super Bowl, by the way,
yeah.
This year. All right, Brady,
Probably.
Thanks for coming on.
Another sport like the NBA, which is dealing with its own scandals, so to speak, and its own headlines with the FBI and what else comes, because this is the same FBI team that also brought the NBA scandals to light. So I'd have to imagine they're working on some other stuff as well right now, and the timing is definitely not a coincidence, but definitely some very significant news in the gambling world that now you're not going to be able to bet more than $200 on a specific pitch market.
NewsWire, only on SportsGrid.
The 35 cents, though, for yes on Ohio State.
Yeah.
I like that, Donnie. I think there's value in that right now because we only got, 3 weeks left to go. Then we'll have conference championships. Yeah, the more they keep winning, and they will win, the more that will increase, and that's a pretty good return on an investment there with Kalshi.
The early line, only on SportsGrid.
Where are the wins coming from? And yes, I agree. Are they good enough to win those games? Yeah, of course they are, right? But the reality of this team is not very good this year in one-score games. They're not. That was their bread and butter a year ago. Like every win last year, one-score game, the Chiefs found a way to win it.
The Craig Carden Show, only on SportsGrid.
It's almost like betting the stock market. The good part about it is you can take a bet today. In the 2 or 3 days, if you nail that bet, you can be able to cash out, Joe. Like you just hit a heavy stock. Like you go into Sun Microsystems or whatever it's called, and you buy into it. In 3 days, you can sell it for a massive profit. Do you understand these markets, Joe?
I do understand the markets. It's amazing how some of the predictive markets seem to have the answers before the test.
SportsGrid's College Football Today.
Welcome back to NewsWire here on SportsGrid. Didn't anticipate ending the show with Cam Skattebo doing crazy things all week long. That's kind of where we're at. A strange story here. We'll get to that. Also, the Rice Owls making a declaration for their upcoming game. And it has been a tough start to the season for the Florida Panthers, two-time defending Stanley Cup champions. And things got a little bit tougher for them this week as well. We'll get to those stories and a whole lot more as we wrap up this Thursday edition of the show with some last licks. Okay, so the two-time defending champion Florida Panthers are off to a tough start. They've had a lot of injuries this season. They are, if I'm looking at this correctly, just 10-8-1. They're going to make the playoffs, of course, and probably challenge for another cup, but at least their regular season is not going to look like the last two regular seasons. And over the weekend, a really bizarre situation that nobody knew about. And in watching the Panthers a little bit more, because I live in South Florida, I didn't know about this either. But all of a sudden, Paul Maurice, he's the head coach of the Florida Panthers, has a press conference on Monday, as they always do, before games, after games, and states that a player is going to be out. You may never have heard of his name before, and that's fine. His name is Eetu Luostarinen. He is on the Florida Panthers. And he is going to be out for an indefinite period of time because of what happened last weekend, which was a grilling accident in South Florida. Now, look, we've seen strange things happen and injuries before. You may want to remember the last sort of freak injury to sideline a guy for a period of time, maybe Najee Harris last July 4th, fair? So apparently he suffered a lot. It's not a laughing matter by any stretch, but a lot of burns over a grilling incident that happened over the weekend. No update this week. They're saying that at some point next week they will find out, but kind of a scary thought to think that you could just be literally out here in South Florida grilling your food and then all of a sudden you're on fire. I don't know if that's what's happening, but Luostarinen is going to miss some time due to a grilling incident. I understand that, but are you guys out there grilling in New York at 30-degree weather right now, Frank? I don't think so. No, you're not. You haven't grilled any. When was the last time you put something on a grill? Okay, all right. I give you credit then. I give you credit. Frank says he's been grilling. Here in South Florida, the weather's nice. Everywhere else, I don't know. Okay, Cam Skattebo. What is going on with Cam Skattebo, the running back on the New York Giants? Fun player at Arizona State. One of the best games in the history of Arizona State in their bowl game. Was really good with the Giants this season. But since he's been hurt, it seems like he's been a lot more active than when he was playing. Showed up on Monday Night Raw for WWE, and then the next night decided to stream on social media and was shotgunning, for those of you who don't know, that's taking a drink and drinking it real fast, shotgunning drinks out of a cleat was Cam Skattebo. I believe if it was a Red Bull, I'm not sure. It could have been something else. I don't even know exactly what. Stream shirtless shotgunning drinks out of cleats for Cam Skattebo. This is 2 times this week he's made the end of our show for nothing to do with football. Now, he's having a good time. He's a young kid, just out of college. I get it. But is it a little weird? Yes, it is definitely a little weird. Is it a little weird that he's streaming all this stuff? Yes, it is a little weird too. So maybe becoming a personality is the way that he wants to go when he's not playing. That's fine. Okay, are you ready for some free drinks while the Rice Owls have your number then, if you're interested in doing that? Because upcoming this week, the Rice Owls are going to be giving away free drinks at one of their upcoming games. And it's not just drinks, it's free beer. How is this even possible that they could do this? Now, remember, a lot of collegiate athletes are there, but Rice, if I'm not mistaken, is in Houston, Texas, I believe so, or right just outside of Houston. So you're going to get a lot of adults there, too. I don't ever recall giving away free beer at a sporting event. Now, $1 beers, $2 beers, 2-for-1s, yes, absolutely free if you want to go see a Rice game this weekend. Very rare occasion for this to happen in sports, but I still would not attend. I'm just not interested in that. Okay. That will do it for our show today. A lot of fun we've had here on the program today. Thanks to our old friend Dan Wallach for coming on the show. Really awesome to see Dan back on. Hopefully we'll be able to get him back more often. Also Tom Vecchio breaking down the very latest in the National Football League, and Brady Cannon for coming on the show as well. Appreciate his participation No doubt about that. In addition, you can catch all of our shows via the SportsGrid app, streaming 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Scan that QR code. It is our holiday gift to you. I'm sure we'll have a nice holiday promo coming soon, but for now, that's my holiday gift to you right now. Scan that QR code. iOS and Android available right now. Streaming platforms wherever you stream our show. Thanks again to our director, Luke, for my producer, Frank. I'm Craig Mish. Enjoy Thursday night football. I'll be back with you for our next edition of NewsWire as we close out the week. That is Friday at 12 o'clock Eastern. Have a great Thursday, everyone. See you then.